Hello everyone, so this is the latest update to the Delivery Kid game that I've been working on. This is a game that I've been developing for the Mini LD65 and the theme is youth. So I decided to make a game that's similar to a game that I played when I was a kid that's based on a paper delivery arcade game. So as you can see here, I've made many different changes to the game. I've improved the gameplay. You can see there are many different obstacles now that block your path, so you got to make sure that you avoid the many different things in the game world. You can see there some of the obstacles haven't been filled in, but there you can see there's a fire hydrant that I just hit. You have 3 lives, and then your game is over when you lose all 3 lives. And as you can see here, you lose all 3 lives and you get fired. So I've got this paper theme. It's like, oh, it's like a headline to a newspaper. I took my own picture and imported that into GIMP and then applied a couple of different filters to give it that newspaper effect. And you'll probably notice a few Easter eggs. They're kind of like shout outs to older games that I've developed in those headlines. So recently I went in and I added different models for the various game objects. Originally I had it where it was all just like a checkerboard square just to get the gameplay down. But you can see now I have a bicycle, which I modeled that myself in Blender. The actual player model, I created that in MakeHuman. And I haven't animated the character yet, so he just stands in that standard T pose right there. But I was able to go in, modify his appearance, and I was able to take his t-shirt, which is a default texture in MakeHuman. I imported that into GIMP, and then I was able to apply my website logo. So he has a different colored shirt, and I also modified the color of his pants a little bit. So you can see all the different obstacles in the game. First of all, you'll probably notice the cars. I was able to get many of these objects or these models on the Unity Asset Store, so I downloaded a cop car and a sports car, and basically I just have a random state, a random variable that determines what type of car it is. And there's actually no difference in the cars, but they come down the road at a constant interval. And I've also added these intersections. That's something new that I added since the last release. So at the second and third intersection, you have to dodge the cars that are going forward in the positive X direction. I also got these house models. Replace those with other boxy figures that I had before. I downloaded a construction pack, and that had these default trash cans, which I think look really nice. As you can see there's a little kitty cat there that chases you around. Originally I had planned for that to be a dog, but I couldn't find any dog assets, so I used the kitty cat. And as far as gameplay goes, I spent a lot of time working on getting that down right. So as you can see there, whenever you go through and you successfully deliver to every house, then you have a perfect delivery, and that will add 1 new subscriber to your route. Now, if you miss a house, you can see in the level report screen that house will turn red briefly, and then it will turn into an unsubscriber. You get different points. If you deliver the newspaper into the mailbox, you get 250 points. If you deliver it on the doorstep, you get 100. And if you break items such as the trash cans or windows, then that goes to your breakage score, which gets added to your points total at the end of the stage. I've made a few different other just visual changes, such as updating the font texture and applying just like a different outline to it. I've also added this grass texture to the level report screen and on the different lots. I kind of rearranged the structure of the code, so now I have a lot for each block, and then the house is parented and all the objects are parented to the house lot. So I got a few new changes I need to do. There's some different obstacles, like I'm going to have construction workers, and you can see here there should be a grate on the side of the road, and also there should be like a post with the house number hanging down, maybe swinging. I have a couple of new ideas for obstacles such as flagpoles and things like that, and also other different obstacles, characters such like as a skateboarder riding down the road. So as you can see here, after you complete Sunday, you retire inglorious. You can see here I was very happy to retire from my job as a delivery kid. One other change I'll also mention is I was able to actually model a newspaper in Blender. It's just a cylinder and I extruded out the sides and did simple texture mapping, so that replaced the sphere that I had before. So I think it looks really nice. I think I add a little bit of torque whenever he throws it, so it'll spin for a little while. And also if I deliver it to a mailbox, then I correctly position it so that it's sticking out of the mailbox so that it looks correct. Some other changes I need to make. To the MakeHuman model, I need to actually animate him. So I'm hoping to figure out how to actually do that, take a model from MakeHuman and animate that correctly. I'm not sure if I'm going to have to pull him into Blender first and animate him in Blender, or if I'll be able to pull him directly into Unity and animate him there. But I'm planning on having him where he's pedaling, and as you press forward to go faster, he'll start pedaling faster. If you hit the brakes, then he'll start pedaling slower, or even not pedal at all. And also when you brake, I would like to have a little puff of smoke, particle effect, so it kind of looks like you're really jamming on the brakes. And the other change I need to make to this, I need to add music, and also I have a lot of ideas for different sound effects to add to the game. So I haven't touched audio at all in this so far. Yeah, so here's one of the character models in MakeHuman. This is where I started, and you can see there's a lot of different options that you can use to change the properties of your character there, such as age, and weight, and height, and their skin tone, and you just have all sorts of different options. I really didn't touch any of these face options or anything. I just used the default, but I did kind of change the age to make my character a little bit younger looking, since it is a delivery kid. Under geometries, that's where you'll actually find all the clothing features. So over here, it is sort of limited with the number of clothing that you have. Just have a few shirts and pants and things like that. After you have your character the way you want your character, you can actually go over here to Files and then Export. And then I always use the Film Box FBX for exporting. That way you can pull that FBX directly into either Blender or Unity. So once you've exported your model into FBX format, it will also generate texture files for all of your clothing options. So it's really easy just to go in and open one of these texture files and you can see what the actual clothing looks like this is a shirt right here. So then you can actually go in there and overlay another texture design for your shirt on top of the default image, and then you can just turn off that existing shirt image, so that way you can modify the player's shirt to look however you want it to look. And you can also change all of the other clothing options, such as your pants and your shoes and your eye color and things like that. I also wanted to show off the bicycle and other models that I created in Blender. So you can see here it's a very simplistic model made with just cylinders and these circular objects. Actually, the wheels were actually cylinders as well, and I extruded and made a smaller cylinder, and then I used the Boolean modifier. And with that, you can actually just specify another object and specify difference, and then that will cut out one object from another. So I basically had two cylinders. I cut out the inner part of the cylinder, so that gave me the tire. And the rest of the objects are basically just cylinders. But one neat trick in Blender is there's my model there, but I got this guide off to the side there, so I can select that, and you can see using the background guide makes rendering this and lining things up appropriately much easier. So to do that, all you do is you go down to background images right here, and if you don't have your options right here, there's usually, I think you can just press N and that will show you the options for your model. Sometimes there's a little plus sign right here that you can click, and that will just pop it out as well. But you go to background images and you just go in and you find the image that you want to use as a background image, and also when you want that background image to display, if you only want to display in the front view or the side view, because you can see whenever you turn your view, the background image goes away. But once you press one of your keys on the numeric keypad, then it will display that background image, so you can actually just change when it displays. And the texture mapping was pretty simplistic. I just selected my different objects, and you can see over here, here's the texture mapping. If I go into edit mode, you can see where I actually moved that to the texture. So I kind of texture mapped it backwards. Usually I take a model and then I generate a layout, import that layout into GIMP, and then put a layer on top, and then I do all my texture drawing on top of that and then pull it back in. But for this one, I just had a simple texture. It's gray and yellow, so then I map this on top of this, so you can select the different objects, and if you go into edit mode, you can see where those are mapped to. So usually I use this process for just doing some minor touch-ups. One thing that I need to do for this model, you can see there's some parts that are missing, like I need to pull out the handlebars a little bit further, and also I need to add pedals to this model. Here's my newspaper model. As you can see, it's a very simplistic, just regular cone, and I just extruded two sides out to the side, and made the ends a little bit bigger. For my texture, for this one I did export a layout that I imported into GIMP. You can see here, this is where I had exported the layout, so it just gives you this right here. And what I always like to do is create additional layers below that, and then you can see whenever you can draw around the layout. You just got to remember to turn off the layout guide before you export your texture. But yeah, I just went in here and added just a simple red line. It looks like it's kind of like a rubber band or something, and also some just sample text to look like there's text on the newspaper. Yeah, so I pulled that into Blender. One trick you can do, you can go to shading, and then you check texture solid so you can actually view what it's going to look like right there. Otherwise, if you don't check that, it's just going to look plain. One other thing you also need to look out for, there's a shading option when you're in edit mode, and by default it's set to flat. So if I click on flat, I go back to texture solid, go into object mode, you can kind of see like the faces of the model right there, so it really doesn't look that great. It doesn't look smooth. You can see like all the different faces. So one thing you will always want to make sure, unless you're actually going for that type of style, you want to select all of your faces and then go into shading and press smooth. That will give it a much better, smoother appearance. So I'm not going to go into all of the detail of the Unity program this time, since I went into detail last time, but I think I'm going to talk a little bit about the scripts. This is the new subscribers method, so whenever you start up, you have the subscriber. So right now it just picks a few different arbitrary houses as subscriber. I probably need to go in here and make that randomized, pick 10 at random, but I do have two global variables which are arrays of bool values, and the first one tracks which houses are subscribers, and the second array of boolean tracks which ones you've successfully delivered. So at the start, it just goes through and makes a bunch of different house icons based on which houses are subscribers. When the level is over, it calls this make service report icons. So it just goes through and instantiates all the house icons, assigns values to those, and then it compares the two arrays, the subscriber array with the delivery array. And for any house that was a subscriber that didn't get successfully delivered, it sets that to a non-subscriber. And it also checks in another method called check perfect to see if you successfully deliver to all of the houses that are subscribers. So if that's true, then it goes through and calls another method called add new subscriber. So this one does pick a random house from the non-subscribers and sets that as a subscriber. And it uses get random non-subscriber index to pick that random house. For the setup level, a lot of it is the same, except I do have public game objects now for all of the different objects in the game. In the setup level, it's still going to create 20 houses, but now it creates an intersection at the first, 10th, and final house. But I do use the Playmaker FSM right here. So I find the first intersection. I set the state to don't spawn cars because I don't want cars spawning on the very first intersection because the player's just coming into the game and I don't want the player to be instantly hit by a car. So I did change the one method to make lot, so each section of the game world is a lot that contains a house and different game objects, and I parent the house to the lot. So for every lot, I'm going to pick a random obstacle. So I currently have 7 random obstacles. So I could have done this in a case statement. I just have an if statement. And so for like the first one, you're going to create the breakdancer guy. You're going to instantiate him. Types 1, you're going to make a brick barbecue, and then so forth. Down here we're going to make the dog, which ended up being a cat, and then the grade, and then the skateboarder guy. And as for the cars, those are actually instantiated from the level manager right here. And I actually have an FSM, spawn car FSM. So that's going to go down here and it's going to spawn a car, set its position, and then it's going to wait for 5 seconds and then spawn another car. So that's for the cars that are coming toward you in the Z direction. Now I also spawn the cars in the intersection object, and basically that's going to go down here and spawn a car. It's going to set the appropriate position at -20, and then I'm going to get a random value from 2 to 3. I'm going to wait from 2 to 3 seconds, and then I'm going to send the event despawn, so it spawns another car. But there's a little bit of randomness in there, so you don't have a current stream of cars all at the same interval. That looks really odd. So you have a little bit of variation in there in how fast the cars are coming out of the intersection. I also want to mention the changes to the player that I made. I can pull the player right there. And so one thing that I did for the player is I'm using 2 colliders, and I found out this works really well. You just create 2 capsule colliders over here. Capsule collider 1, and I have another one down here, capsule collider number 2. And I placed those at the location of each of the wheels. So you can see there's the 2 capsule colliders. So that seems to work really well. whenever something collides into the player, it's going to trigger whether the front capsule or the back capsule collider had been hit. I also changed how the camera actually follows the player. Before, I had parented the camera directly to the player, so that's a quick and dirty trick. If you want the camera always to follow the player, that works really well. The problem with using that technique is if you want to rotate the player on the y-axis, then your camera is going to swing wildly behind the player. So I just want my camera fixed directly behind the player, even if the player turns. So I had to go in here and I find the player object, check whether or not it's null, because you're not guaranteed that the player will be spawned when this is executed. And I get the position of the player right here. And then I add the camera offset, so I want the camera, I'm going to pull it up and over to the right a little bit. And then I'm going to set the smooth follow action just to make sure that it's always following behind the player at that angle. Yeah, so that's it for this week's update for Delivery Kid. I currently submitted this for the Mini LD65. I posted this on itch.io in development status, so if you want to play the current version, please go to my itch.io page, gatechgrad.itch.io, and you can download it there. But I still plan on working on this a little bit more to finish up the rest of the models, like adding the mailbox and the stack of delivery papers and things like that. So anyway, that's it for this week. Thanks everyone for watching.